Again, I mentioned early that it's been a crazy season, and there are different levels of crazy, but I've been encouraged recently as the pastor here from other organizations and some people that help pastors out. They've encouraged that it's in this season that the church needs to be crystal clear about why they exist and who they are. In other words, they've got to revisit vision in this season. That vision matters, and so we want to refresh that, and a vision brings alignment. And there's a verse in Scripture, and maybe you've heard it, but Proverbs chapter 29, verse 18, says this, that where there is no prophetic vision, the people cast off restraint. And some of you have heard it maybe, where there is no vision, the people perish. And that's very, very true. And as we keep that up there, the idea is that we have got to keep in front of us where we are headed, because vision leaks. If we could catch vision in a bucket, it's like that bucket, no matter how big it is, it's got a hole in it, right? And some of the holes are bigger than others, and you may have been filled up with vision and really understood with a direction, and all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, why do we do this? Or what is this about? And so we want to use today to bring back into alignment. We're going to cast vision again. A few months ago, the board and I were wrestling through some things. I had asked the board to read this book called How to Help Your Pastor Succeed. And by the way, I've got a few extra copies. If you're interested in reading this, come and see me after service. I would gladly give you one. But within that book, there's a section about how the pastors, or the staff and the board and everyone in the church really should be able to echo the vision, share the vision. And so when the board asked me, they came back after reading this and they're saying, hey, how can we best echo your vision? I did a little bit of work on that, and I came back, and I really started with who we are and who we're trying to be. Our mission statement, which we just mentioned, just looked at, but then also our vision statement. I want to do that for our sake this morning. Our mission, it really describes who we are. If you were to cut us open, saying, hey, what is the Gateway Church? Who are the Gateway Church? Well, the Gateway Church, we are a Spirit-filled church, right? Committed to glorifying God by connecting the Lakeshore, the people of the Lakeshore, with God, with each other, with the world. And so we break that down with God, with each other, with the world. But this is who we are. If you're coming or been watching online for a while, you're saying, hey, I wonder if that church is for me. Would you fit? This is who we are. This is unashamed that we are. And in fact, I want us to say this together. At the Gateway Church, we are, say with some gusto, a Spirit-filled church committed to glorifying God by connecting the people of the Lakeshore with God and with the world. Right. That's who we are. Now, who are we becoming? That's our vision statement. And it's a little different. That at the Gateway Church, we are striving to become a healthy, multiplying church known for making an impact in our community and to the ends of the earth, to our world. And this is kind of who we're striving to be. We want to be healthy. We want to be growing, multiplying, and we want to make an impact. Not for ourselves or for some sort of self-gratification, but for God's sake, we want to make an impact in our community. That if we were plucked out for some reason, that there would be a huge gap if we didn't exist. And so that's who we are becoming. And so let's just say that together. At the Gateway Church, we are striving to become a healthy, multiplying church known for making an impact in our community and in our world. And that's who we are. In church, I am convinced more than ever that a God-given vision cannot be stopped. Can I get an amen? It's so true. Vision is the filter for every decision we make in regards to ministries and outreaches. And so again, when I was answering the board saying, hey, how can we best echo your vision? I went back and said, okay, how have we spent money over the last 14 years? Because how many know that where your money is follow the money, you'll know where the heart of the church is or the heart of a family. You say, hey, how do you spend your funds? Show me your wallet. I'll show you what's important to you. How many understand that principle, right? So what I did for the board is I laid out saying, hey, over the last 14 years, we were committed and have been and will continue to be committed to family ministry. And what that means to us is that we're going to care for kids and we're going to care for the youth and we will invest there. And we have for years invested heavily. And so we have a full-time children's, or close to full-time, will be children's pastor. Part-time now, working in that direction with Pastor Rachel. Pastor Drew, he's in our overflow this morning, and he's almost finished with school, and again, part-time, moving towards full-time. And we invest not only in staff, but then we want to resource them so they can have the opportunity to minister to students, to kids, and that is important to us. And so we've invested there. The second area that came to my mind was in regards to worship. I was saying first service. Even when we first came, there were like 50 people, 60 people. Even from those early days, we paid a stipend, just a little bit, for our worship because we thought, man, we've got to have a level of excellence in worship. And so we started then, and then we've grown, and now we have a full-time worship and discipleship pastor. We've invested in him and Kyle, and what a blessing they've been. And again, we care about your growth, your personal growth. Not only on Sunday mornings, the experience, but we want to help you grow in the Lord. And so we've put money there. You say, well, how have we done? Well, we've got room to grow in all these areas, right? But there's another area that we've invested heavily over the years, and that's with missions. We've said in the last few years that missions has been and always will be the key to our future. In fact, would you say that with me? Missions has been and always will be the key to our future. We believe that. We've lived that out. In fact, the last 2 weeks has been our missions encounter. And today is kind of an attempt to kind of wrap that up. But we've looked at the world, and we've looked at the stateside missions, and we've looked at local outreach and missions. And yes, this year certainly has looked different in regards to a missions encounter because of COVID. But that's okay. We didn't do a banquet. We didn't have any extras. It's been just the past couple Sundays. But God knows. And really, these last few Sundays have been an invitation for you to join the church in our DNA that we're going to care about missions. Missions has been and always will be the key to our future. Now, this year, the theme was that mission starts here. Say that with me. Mission starts here. And point at yourself. Missions starts here. It starts with each of us. We heard testimonies and shared stories. And online, we've been watching video testimonies. It's been awesome. And we've been challenged to get involved through Faith Promise Giving. And we got brochures explaining what that is. And I understand we've got some guests this morning. We want to say welcome. Thank you for joining us. And certainly today, when we get to the application part, we want those that have been connecting with us to participate. Feel no obligation to do so. But today, it really wraps up, I believe, some of the most important Sundays of the year for the Gateway Church, our missions encounter. So I want to talk about the DNA a little further, establishing some expectations for how we say mission starts here. And mission starts here really starts with you and with me being faithful in our tithes. The first 10% of any increase that we get goes to the Lord. It honors God. It's what Scripture encourages us to do. And I would say that even during COVID, you should be faithful in your tithes. We're in the middle. We've got 2 weeks left of Financial Peace University that we're facilitating again. And we tell people, even in your debt snowball, if you're in debt, you tithe, you honor God in that midst, and God will bless you for that. And that's whether you make $10 or you make $10 million, we encourage you to be faithful in your tithes. And that's where mission starts. You say, well, why do you say that? Well, because at the Gateway Church, we take every gift undesignated, any of your tithes, and the church tithes off your tithes. So we set aside the first 10% of every undesignated dollar goes to support missions. It funds missions expenses, it funds projects, it funds missions trips, which we haven't had any in 2020, but typically we do. And we help pay for anyone that goes or is answering the call to be a missionary. We also fund the leader. You got to have good leaders to send people all over the world or even local missions. And so we will fund the leader to help with that in a significant way. And it's the missions team's job to monitor funds, that 10%, we call it missions general. And we feel like it's our responsibility to steward those funds well and to make a difference. And so we say mission starts here. It starts with our tithe. And I can't encourage you enough to be faithful in this season, to be giving of your tithes. Then above and beyond that, as the Lord gives increase, we encourage folks to give faith promise giving. And we invite kids to do this. We invite the youth group to participate in this. We invite singles and married and widows and widowers and we young and old. It doesn't matter, to participate in faith promise giving above and beyond your tithe. You say, well, what does that look like? Well, this is where I want to kind of share some of our story, Jessica and my story. And it's really a supernatural story. I always like to start by going back when I was in junior high. I was encouraged to give up a Big Mac sandwich every week, $2, for missions, for a Speed the Light pledge. And I remember being a student watching, and they had some Big Macs all stacked up, and guys were eating those and saying, hey, you can give up $2 a week, and that's $104 for the year. And I remember sitting there and thinking, you know what, I could do twice that. and I did that first year. I gave over $200 to missions, and the Lord, we've never stopped. I met my wife when I was 16 years old, so a couple years later, on a missions trip, and Jessica had been on 5 international missions trips before we got married at 19 and 20, and so she had a heart for missions, and when we got married, we just continued to be giving to missions, even through college, even when our first year annual income together combined was $12,000. I mean, we were dirt poor, but we always honored God with our tithe, and we always did something for missions. And then I ended up in my first ministry position in Dayton, Ohio. And Jessica and I, we decided at that point we were going to promote missions with our kids ministry. And the Lord really honored that and really saw creative ways and to grow missions and the heart for missions with kids. It was super exciting. There were moments where we were, out of the entire United States, we were second and third in the nation for the largest amount given for kids. It was incredible, and the Lord helped us in that season. In that season, I had a dealer's license. I was kind of bivocational, and I was buying and selling cars. And our heart then was to give 50% of the profit to missions. And so we did that for several years. And you say, well, what does that look like? Well, how many cars did you sell? Well, I was at the peak. My top year, I sold 83 cars in 1 year. And so, I mean, it was a side hustle on steroids. I mean, it was like God. I couldn't get enough cars to move. It was awesome. And so in that season, we thought when we moved here, I would just continue to do the same thing. And the Lord just kind of dried that up. I had my truck and trailer. I'd go to Grand Rapids, get a car, and instead of selling it quickly, I would have it for 2 months or maybe even longer. And instead of making maybe $300 to $500, I would make $50, and I'm like frustrated. I'm like, what in the world, God? We have this heart for missions, and and the Lord just spoke to us and said, not now. And I let my dealer's license go. I sold my truck, or we gave away our truck, and then we sold the trailer, and the Lord, it was good. But it was in that time frame, in that first couple of years being here at the Gateway Church, that I heard some testimonies of people that really cared about faith promise giving. In fact, one of our missionary guests that early on talked about, for him and his wife, their missions pledge was larger than the average car payment And I remember hearing that, and we were motivated by that, and we kind of strived to do that. And so we started carving out of our normal budget and kind of working in that direction. And then a couple years later, a similar story, but instead of a car payment, someone had said, man, that their missions pledge had grown beyond I can't talk. It was bigger than their house payment every single month that they were giving away to missions. And that motivated us. And so now for the past several years, that's been our story. We kind of grew to that point and we carved it out, and the Lord has helped us in that. And then about 3 years ago, I heard about a pastor that made a faith promise, and I heard the story from his mouth. The Lord put on his heart to give $50,000 away in a year for faith promise. And I said, Jessica, and we didn't make a $50,000 pledge, I promise. We aspire to that. Someday, Lord willing, we will do that. And the point is that our missions pledge has grown, our commitment to the Lord. And the point is, you just cannot outgive God. And the Lord, when He puts an idea on your heart, and it's always tied back to mission, it's always tied back to the vision. There's sacrifice. Oh, yeah. I said first service that we've got our carpet at our house is original from 1994. And so it's old, and certainly we've talked about hardwood floor. We had the money saved, remember? And we almost pulled the trigger on it, and then the Lord kind of encouraged us to give that away. And it's okay. In fact, someone recently, we were going to get our carpets cleaned, and the carpet cleaning company said, no, we're just going to do this as a gift to you and your family. I'm like, are you kidding me? So the Lord, He's taking care of it, right? And it definitely goes against our culture, doesn't it? To give away or to be, to dig deep and sacrifice kind of whatever it takes. It goes against the culture, no doubt. And this morning, I share our story, a little bit of our journey to inspire, hopefully, you to say, hey, I could do something. And yes, I understand for some, when I first started here at the Gateway Church, we didn't do faith promise giving, but we did that first year. And so it was a learning, and we had people that were like, okay, I get it, and now have grown, and they've joined our passion, and it's been incredible. If it's a new concept, we encourage you to do something for missions. I believe every single person, young people to the oldest among us, can do something. In fact, we talk about giving in percentages. The first 10% goes to the Lord, but maybe try 1%. Recently, the stats have changed. I always thought that for the past several years that the average household income was $50,000, and that was kind of what I'd always seen. Recently, Dave Ramsey did some work, and the average household income in the United States now, combined income, if there's dual income or if it's one person, is $60,000. And so if you're saying, hey, where could I start? Well, maybe try 1%. That's $600 for the year. And see if if you couldn't give $600. That's $50 a week, or $50 a month, I'm sorry. And see if the Lord wouldn't allow that. And the idea is, Lord, if you can get it to me, you can get it through me. Now, let's just talk real practical. Where are we at the Gateway Church? At this point, we started back 14 years ago supporting 3 missionaries. Now we support over 120. We hover right around that number. I thought we were a little over, but we've had a couple come off the field because of COVID, and they've retired. But what's the need? We've got about 120, give or take a few, missionaries that we support monthly. And when you break that down, the bigger portion is the world missionaries, those that are out overseas. About $5,000 is our commitment right now every single month. Another $3,000 for stateside and local ministries. And so a total about $8,000 is where we stand today in regards to faith promise giving. We pick up a missionary typically at $50 a month, and then we've increased to $75 and $100, and some are even beyond that. But that's how that works. And 100% of faith promise giving goes directly to missionaries. And so that's our obligation. That's kind of where we've been hovering in the last season, over the last year or so. And you say, well, how are we doing this year in regards to, faith promises in regards to this? And I asked for the statistics this week, saying, hey, how are we doing? I know a lot of our folks are still online, about 50% or maybe even more still haven't returned to church, and that's okay. But the one statistic that kind of was shocking, we've only had one online commitment turned in, and I was like, oh, that's really sad. And then what was worse is that only 20 commitment cards have come in before this morning. Now, first service we took care of that, and we're going to take care of that now as well. But about 1/4 of the support that we needed has come in for this next year. We were about $1,925 given in monthly support has been pledged. And so we've got some room to work, and we got some things to do. And even for Jessica and I, yesterday we were on a walk, and we finally decided kind of what's the next for us for this next season. And we believe God gave us a number. In fact, really remarkably, sometimes it's more difficult, but this year we both were like, yeah, we're thinking the same thing. And so we went with that. And I just want to acknowledge that I understand that this has been a tumultuous, is that how you say it? Tumultuous? You know what I mean. A difficult year. But and for some, you're thinking, man, 1%, I don't think I could even do that. But I would encourage you to try. But in fact, I listen to Dave Ramsey all the time, and he's been saying recently that 2020 is a dumpster fire year. I think is how he's been saying it. It's like a throwaway year. And I'm like, no. This is not a throwaway year. Because I've heard, yes, I understand that some have really struggled, but I've also heard even more stories of people that have had more overtime and their businesses have grown and there's been a expansion, and it's been the best year they've ever had financially. And so I understand that we're all over the place, but regardless, this is who we are. This is what we do, and this is how we support missions. We have the two funds. We have the 10% from your tithes, and then we have Faith Promise Giving that supports our ongoing monthly support for those missionaries. And with God's help, that's what we do. So let me pause for a second. I want everybody to take up your faith promise. Everyone should have one right in front of you, and I want you to grab that. And I want what we're going to do, because this is important, we're going to take the time in the service to go ahead and fill these out. And everyone, I want 100% participation. Even if you're here as a guest, you can just keep it blank. But what we're going to do is we're going to fill these out, and then we're going to fold them in half like this. And I know normally we bring those to the altar and pray and we're not going to do that. But we are going to have the ushers come in a few moments, and we'll just pass those to the side aisles, and we'll just drop them in. They're confidential. Only a couple people see these, and then we destroy them. We don't come after you, but what it does, it helps the missions team to plan how to move forward. And so normally it's kind of been flip-flop this year. I could just complain about COVID, but I'm not going to. But what we're going to do this morning is if you're a part of the church, and whether you've made a faith promise or not in the past, we want you to make a new faith promise and let us know what you've sensed the Lord doing in you. And you can make it say new or renewed, and then it can be a weekly pledge or a monthly pledge, or what we've done in the past several years now is we put a yearly amount, and then the counters, they can divide it by 12 and they can figure that out. But that's how we've done it. And what we're going to do is we're going to participate together in unity, and we're going to do this in the overflow. And can I just speak to those that are online? You can do this online at thegateway.church and certainly do that. Or we sent these home a couple weeks back. You can put those in the mail. And over this next week, we want to tabulate those, and we are going to report back next week how did we do? Where are we in the process? And so I just want us to take a moment, kind of quiet our hearts, and think about the missionaries that we're supporting. Over the last few weeks, we've had lots of videos of thank yous on Facebook, and some of you have seen those and shared those, and it's been so much fun. But there was a church built earlier this year in India, paid for by the Gateway Church and dedicated in February. And that was because Carrie Malden is one of our missionaries that we support. And not only did we support him monthly, we gave from the 10%, and we built a church earlier this year, and we celebrated that on video a little earlier. There have been food distributions in Tijuana. Matt Cooey, I sat down with him about a month and a half ago. He's in Tijuana, but his family's from this area. And we had coffee, and he was saying, look, the mission has not stopped. And there are story after story. There are missionaries who were able to stay on the field because of our faithful support. And we could share, and we have shared a lot of these stories over the last couple weeks. And I just want to say thank you. And when God puts something on our heart, we encourage you to be faithful. And so we kind of work it into our budget, but then above and beyond that, we think, okay, what could God do? And it's fun. It's the best way to live, to do that. And so what I want us to do is just ask the Lord in your own way, kind of quiet our hearts. And then we've got a video here, and you've seen it over the last couple of weeks, but we're going to play it one more time, just a thank you from our missionaries. And then at the end of that video, Ron and whoever's helping you, Sam, then at the end, then we'll come and we'll pass those to the end and we'll put those in. And Jessica, we need to do that as well. So you can want to fill this one out? Thanks. All right. So we can do that and participate as well. So anyway, let's just ask the Lord, just here in the quiet, Lord, what are you doing? What are you challenging me to do? What are you challenging my family to do? Lord, help us to be full of faith, to not only hear, but then to respond. And God, I pray that you challenge us beyond our wildest imagination. Lord, that we'd grow to be giving tens of thousands of dollars away. Wouldn't that be incredible if that was our story? Lord, that you would do it. And Lord, together, whether we give a 1% or $100 for the year or whatever it is, Lord, just work in us to make your plans for the Gateway Church missions go forward. We thank you for this. In Jesus' name, amen. Enjoy this video. Fill out your cards. Separate it. Go ahead with the video, and we'll be on our way.
Hey, Gateway Church and Pastor Ben.
Good morning, Gateway Church.
Hi, Gateway family.
Hi, Gateway Church.
Hello, Gateway Church.
Hi, Gateway Church.
Hello, Gateway Church.
Hi, Gateway Church.
Hey there, Gateway.
Hi, Gateway.
Greetings, Gateway Church.
Hi, Gateway family.
Hello, Pastor Ben and Gateway Church.
Well, good morning, Gateway family.
This is your missionary, Mason Corwin.
This is Carrie Malden.
And Melody Malden.
This is Ben.
And Natalia.
This is Ruth Clark.
This is Tyler and Fru Halstead.
This is Queen Briner.
It's Jackie in the United Arab Emirates.
This is John Taylor, missionary to Surabaya, Indonesia.
This is Josh Piper from Love in Action.
My name is Pierce Davis, and my family and I are missionaries in Thailand.
My name is Amy Greenlee, and I serve in Southeast Asia.
This is Matt Cooey with Spectrum Ministries.
I'm Dave Goldschmidt, and my family serves as your missionaries in Scotland.
Gateway Church, thank you so much for all you're doing for missions.
Thank you so much for supporting us.
You have been supporting our church planting ministry in German-speaking Europe for many years now.
You guys have been with us since the very beginning.
We are so grateful to be a part of what you guys are doing in the World Through Missions.
Ministry this year looks a lot different, but the mission is still the same.
In this year, 2020 has been difficult, and you guys have actually increased your support for us, and you've helped us get close to being able to leave.
Thank you for the special gift you guys gave.
This is how we used it today. Let me show you what you gave.
You're one of the churches that has never missed a month during COVID and everything going on and all the crazy and some churches having to cut back. You've never missed.
With the money that you sent us today, I'm able to take this lady, this Vietnamese lady, who is almost blind, to the hospital to give her an eye surgery.
We're going to use that money to give to students, specifically care packages, and then also in our outreaches.
So we're helping with supplemental income for pastors across Indonesia.
We would like to give the money to a very needy student from China that's here on our campus.
We built and a good-looking church has come up, dedicated in February of 2020 by the Gateway Church.
We took it into one of our neighborhoods, passed out over 200 bags of groceries.
Then your guys' gift came in and helped pay for these things. It was really awesome to see God's timing and provision.
Your church has partnered with us in so many ways.
We're so thankful to be your missionaries. It was through missionaries that I got saved.
There is churches being planted in the Buddhist world because of you and because of your generosity.
Because of you, the Church of Jesus Christ has grown in the Philippines.
We wanted to thank you for giving to the Lord.
You guys were literally here with us today.
So thankful for you all at Gateway. Have a great missions time.
Thank you so much.
I love it. And those are little clips, and there's expanded ones on Facebook from every single one of those missionaries. And I encourage you to watch those, rewatch those. And so at this point, let's pass all those. Just fold them up, 100% of us, and just pass them. Even if it's blank, just pass them in. And we're going to do that all across this place. And we'll add those up and let you know how we did for 2021, moving into next year for missions. Amen. And while they do that, let me just pray a special blessing. Lord, I know that faith is rising in this place. Lord, that you are calling people to be above and beyond what they can even imagine. And Lord, I pray that as we put our faith in you, Lord, that you will do a great and mighty work here. Lord, that the work will go on. And Lord, we know that you partner with us. Lord, help us to be your hands and feet. Lord, help us to release the funds that you put on our heart to do so. And Lord, that you provide supernaturally in these next 12 months, Lord, to see our faith promises fulfilled. Lord, we thank you for this in Jesus' name. And all God's people said, amen and amen. Now, that was kind of the first part. Now I want to just transition a little bit. And to me, what God is doing with missions is exciting, but also simultaneously, we want to strategize with you about how we can be most effective together. We've said that missions starts here, right? It starts with us. And really, it starts with our tithes. It also starts with our hearts to be involved, to use our gifts and abilities, our time, our talent, and our treasure. Missions begins with each of us understanding why we exist personally and who we're modeling our lives after. Missions is not about us individually, right? Our own thoughts, our own desires. It's about us giving of ourselves, actually dying to ourselves, right? Picking up our cross and following Jesus. And this year we've been in the book of Mark, and I've been studying in Mark all year long. And in Mark chapter 9 and in chapter 10, there are two small sections of Scripture that really jumped off the page to me when I started thinking and dreaming about mission starts here. Let me give you a little background on Mark. In Mark chapter 9 through Mark chapter 12, it's really the last season of Jesus' life, and at this point the crowds have kind of gone away. It's just Jesus and his disciples, and he's teaching them. He's kind of refocusing, developing them for their future. He's talking about how to be full of faith and how to have humility, and how he teaches them about generosity. In today's focus, in these two little stories or two little sections, he talks about being a servant, and that's where missions really starts, with having a servant's heart. And let's look at Mark chapter 9, verse 33, the first little idea. It says this: they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you discussing on the way?" But they kept silence, for on the way they had argued with one another about who was the greatest. You can just imagine the disciples, right? Walking into town, and they're talking. Jesus is ahead, and they're saying, how do you be great? Who's going to be the greatest? And Jesus sat them down. He called the 12 to him, and he said to them, if anyone would be first, he must be last of all, the servant of all. And he took a child and put him in the midst of them, and taking him in his arm, he said to them, whoever receives such a child in my name receives me, and whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me. So the disciples are saying, how to be great? How do you do that? And Jesus answers by saying, You must be the servant of all. And I love the tie to a kid there, a child, right? Because a child has no influence. A child cannot advance someone's career. A child doesn't give us things. In fact, if you have kids, you know that a child drains your accounts, right? It's just the reality. A child needs things. But here the idea is that if you go after the people that can't pay you back, that God, He's going to pay you back. It's an idea I heard early in ministry as a kids pastor, and I loved hearing this from Willie George Ministry in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Go after those who no one wants, and God will give you everyone, or God will give you who everyone wants. And I love that. And it's been a focus of mine, and the idea that you want to be a servant. You want to serve those that cannot pay you back, and it starts with that mentality. If you go to the next chapter, in Mark chapter 10, so we see in chapter 9, it's about being a servant. Again, here, James and John, it's kind of part of the trilogy. Peter, James, and John, the three that Jesus would kind of pull aside. They were, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, they came up to Jesus and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask for you." Sounds like your prayers, doesn't it? And mine, right? Like you come to Jesus and say, "Hey, Jesus, do what I want you to do," right? And that's exactly what happens here. And they said to him, "Grant to us that one will sit at your right hand and the other on your left in your glory." And Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?" And they said to him, "We are able." So they were super bold. And Jesus said to them, "Yes, the cup that I drink, you will drink, and the baptism that which I've been baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit on the right hand or on my left hand is not mine to be granted, but it is for those whom it's been prepared." And then he called the 10 together. When the 10 heard, they began to be indignant at James and John, right? They're saying, "What's going on, man? Why are you always trying to get ahead? Why you're always jockeying for position?" And he called them together and said, "You know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles, they lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But that is not the way we're supposed to act," right? He says, where I lost my place, "But it should not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. And whoever would be first must be the slave of all. For even the Son of Man," this is the kicker, verse 45, circle it in your Bible, highlight it somehow. Verse 45, "For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and he gave his life as a ransom for many." When you look at the world system, how to get ahead, James and John, their formula was, hey, I've got to know the right person. I got to jockey for position. I got to know the heavy hitters. I got to sell myself, kind of self-promotion, or kind of get in there first, sit with the brass, so to speak. But Jesus says, no. That's not how the kingdom of heaven works. The worldly way is to get ahead, self-promotion, but in the God's way, God's kingdom, it's all about being the servant of all. Greatness is tied to servanthood. To be first, you must be a slave. And this is not the only example in Scripture. All throughout Scripture, we see testimonies of this. We see it in Joseph's life, in Moses' life, Joshua, David, Timothy, and even Jesus himself modeled this. I like what Philippians chapter 2 says. It says, have this in mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God," that's Jesus, "did not count equality with him a thing to be grasped, but he emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of man." Jesus was the servant of all. Jesus gave everything for our freedom. He gave everything for our forgiveness. It's the key. It goes back to Mark 10:45. The key, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. And can I just bring it down really to grassroots here at the Gateway Church? Each of us that call ourselves believers are called to lay down our lives, to pick up our cross and follow Jesus. That's where missions begins. It begins with each of us. And when we walk with Jesus, we have to be careful that it doesn't become all about us. If we only do what we want to do, or when we want to do it, or what we are even gifted to do, haven't we cut out the heart of a servant to do whatever it takes to lay it all down? We should ask ourselves, why are we doing this or that? And again, the heart of Christianity is that we would serve just like Jesus did. Now let's be real practical here. If you call the Gateway Church your home church, this is where you regularly attend, we want to invite you to be a part of what God's doing here and give you opportunities to serve. Yes, there's value in just showing up and participating on a Sunday morning, and we do love that. We love a full crowd, and we believe that in this next season, God's going to continue to draw us. We love seeing you online and participating in that way, and that's awesome. But we have to all be careful that church is not just about us or about ourselves. Even as your pastor, I know the Pastor Appreciation Month was last month, and yes, there's perks, and there's some that are measurable, some that are immeasurable, but ultimately, as your pastor, I need to be the chief servant here to lay down my life, just like the rest of us would do. It's that important, and I certainly strive to do that. But can I ask you a question? When is the last time you served? Served where no one could pay you back, or served out of not just obligation? And I understand that COVID has changed things and it's been difficult. But I want to encourage you that this is our time. We believe that God is bringing us into a season where it will become more and more normal, that we've got to continue to push the mission and the vision forward. Pastor Bobby and I were talking about this, and he said it's kind of like, you would never have a family if there was a family and one member of the family decided never to help in any way at home. Maybe the dad never did the dishes or never served or never did anything, was just a lazy bum. You'd say something's unhealthy there, right? Everyone should pull their own weight. Kids that don't participate, or they're just, spoiled rotten, like you're saying, hey, something's not right there, right? Well, it's the same here at the Gateway Church. We are the body of Christ, and everybody should pull their weight. We believe that we're most effective when we are working together, when we're serving together. We believe that missions starts with each of us getting in the game. And so what we've done is we've created a little tool. It says mission starts here. And it lists out 6 different areas that in this season that we would love for you to consider joining us, opportunities for you to serve. On the back, you can fill out the information. On the front, it talks about hospitality, and there's different ways that you can serve there. Missions, on the missions board. Maybe you just made a faith promise for the first time. Say, man, I'd love to know how that works. Come and join us. We'd love to do that. Gateway Kids, and we got a big announcement here in 30 seconds that Pastor Rachel's going to bring. Gateway Youth. Creative arts, that's worship team, sound and tech and video switchers and things like that. And then connect groups. When we look into 2021, we believe that we will be back in connect groups, and the Lord has given us a vision for that. And we'd love for you to be a leader, or a facilitator, or a host around those things. And so what I'm going to ask is that you would be considering over these next few moments. Pastor Rachel's going to come and talk a little bit about this to a bigger degree, and then we got a big announcement, and especially for those of you that are at home with kids. But Pastor Rachel, why don't you come and share, and then we will, in the worship team, you can come as well, and we'll take an opportunity to fill these out. Pastor Rachel.
Cool. I forgot to announce what I was going to announce first service, so I won't forget this time. But I just want to share a little bit about serving. I started serving in kids ministry when I hit 6th grade, because when you were in 6th grade, you couldn't be in kids church anymore, and I was like completely uninterested in going to big service. Didn't want to hear some old guy talk about things I didn't care about. So I was like, serving kids ministry, there's candy, and now I'm in charge of the candy. And it really was just a simple yes that turned into me finding like my calling and where, man, I could cry, darn it. That yes as a 12-year-old turned into me understanding the plan God had for my life. And it's just those simple yeses over and over again. Pastor Ben kind of hit on this, but I think just to simply put it, our biggest resources is our time and our money. And we have to sincerely evaluate, what are we doing with those things? And I could tell you all about the cool opportunities I've had to serve in different missions trips and opportunities that I've had because I was involved in the church. But as I was sitting in service, all my mind kept going back to, are the leaders who invested in me. It brings me to tears thinking about how so many people from the church were there for me. And it was because they said yes to serving. And yes, I understand serving isn't just serving here at Gateway. I was actually talking to Matt just about like what it means to be living missionally, and he's a therapist and got to share about how in his vocation he's actively doing the mission of God, and like that's what we're called to do. But the church is one of the safest places to start doing that. I really could just tell you countless stories. My mind goes to my parents got divorced, and on that night, probably the worst night of my life, I was on the phone with my youth pastor. And it was because he said yes to serving. And we want to be people who are there when people need us, when people are broken, when they are hurting. We have to say yes to serving. And the big announcement that Pastor Ben was talking about is we have more opportunity to serve because my favorite ministry is starting again. December 6th, we get to be back in kids ministry. And I just want to invite you guys to ask God what he's asking you to say yes to. We have our time and we have our money, and we have to be using both missionally. So we're going to go into this worship song. You guys got those papers on your way in. I thought I had one, but I don't. Pastor Ben, you can just hold it up. Oh, good try. Don't throw it again. Thanks, Bobby. I want you guys to grab these in your hands, and I just want you to ask God what he's having you say yes to. And like I said, you checking a box here isn't you saying, all right, I'm officially living missionally. It is a constant every morning asking, God, what are you doing with my resources today? What are you asking me to do with the time that I have today? What are you asking me to do with the money that you've entrusted me? And parents, share with your kids what you're doing with that. Tell them what your faith promise is. Let them be a part of that. Grab these. I'm going to pray, and we are going to go into a song. And I just want to invite you guys to trust that God's going to speak to you about what it looks like to live missionally. And then after service, you can drop these in the buckets on your way out. And if you're like, none of these boxes really fit who I am or like my skill set, you can write that on there, and we will talk to you and figure out, or help you figure out, what does it mean to live missionally? Because this is the reason we exist. This is really, really important. Lord, first of all, just thank you for the leaders that you've put in my life that have brought me to the point that I'm at. And thank you for trusting a 12-year-old with kindergartners at Grand Rapids First, and the impact that that's had on my life and the role that I've been able to play. Would you help us to be people who are so deeply and intimately in love with you that we couldn't help but serve? Help us be people who wake up every morning trusting you with our resources, that we would ask you what you want to do with our time, what you want to do with our money, and all of the other things that you've entrusted us. Would you just meet us in that space? And would you help us to remember to create that space, to create opportunities to ask what it is you're asking us to do? And I just thank you so much that you let us be a part of what you're doing. Would you help us to be actively a part of it, Jesus?